And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Sylvester Harris, who writes, "Hey, John, I wanted to bring a really disturbing article to your attention from Variety about Disney's new leadership and direction. The article basically lays out a company in massive confusion, the addition of unnecessary new layers of management, the taking away power from the actual creators and giving it to the business suits, and tension between Bob Iger and the new CEO Bob Chapek. If you've read the article, what are your thoughts, and could this all be a problem for Disney?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Sylvester. And yeah, listen, Disney, everybody knows I'm a big fan of Disney. I'm a big fan of most of the studios, but I'm a big fan of Disney. I'm a big Star Wars fan, big MCU fan, all that kind of stuff. Love Pixar, blah, blah, blah. Big fan of Disney. And they've been going through there's a massive change underway over at Disney. I'm not talking about Disney Plus or anything like that. It is the ending now of the Bob Iger era, transitioning into the Bob Chapek era. Now, Chapek won't have the same power that Iger had, because not only was Bob Iger the CEO of Disney, he was also the chairman of the board of Disney. So Bob Chapek is going to be the CEO. He won't wield the same kind of power Iger had, but Iger is getting ready to step away. He's already handed over the CEO title to Bob Chapek, so he's now leading the company. And I believe it's come December, Bob Iger will then step away, even from his chairman role. And the transition will be complete. And we've already started to see a number of things changing over at Disney and the way they do things. And we've already seen Bob Chapek starting to put his stamp on things. And, a number of months ago, Bob Chapek did that big press thing where he talked about his whole reorganization of the company and creating new divisions and all this kind of stuff. But I got to admit, I've also seen some things. I've seen more things I've been critical of Disney in the past few months than I have in the past few years. And I've never really been able to put my finger on it. And this article that just came to us from Variety seems to really put a stamp on it. Now, before we get into that article, there's a few things a couple things I want us to look at, okay? And when you look at there are four main traits if you want to look at the era of Bob Iger's leadership, okay? One of them being that let the creators lead. That was one of the big things that Bob Iger always said. He goes, Bob Iger's idea was that when you get into a company like Disney, we're not just talking on the movie side. One of Bob Iger's big traits was let the creators lead. Let the creators create and let that creation lead the way for the ways that we go. And then a lot of the ways that Bob Iger kind of organized the company was always done in such a way that allowed that the creation and the creative aspects of Disney. And by the way, Danny Sunian and John Demoto send in super chat badges in the live chat. Thanks, guys. But the way that we organize ourselves is that creation and creativity is what's going to lead our company. And that was always kind of one of his big things. Another thing that was a hallmark of Bob Iger's leadership at Disney was remove unnecessary layers of bureaucracy. Because over the years at Disney, you always heard about this got axed and this got axed, but it was all part of his overall thing to try to streamline things as much as possible so things can go from conception, whether it's a theme park idea or a movie idea, things can go from conception to creation as quickly and as smoothly as and efficiently as possible. For people who are fans of the MCU, one little sign of this was when, Bob Iger decided to take Ike Perlmutter out of the thing, because remember, the way the hierarchy used to be for the MCU was you had Kevin Feige, who had to report to Ike Perlmutter. Ike Perlmutter was his boss. And then Ike Perlmutter would report to Alan Horn, who was the high exalted emperor of all things Disney movies. Well, that was problematic. It created problems. Iger stepped in and said, okay, got rid of Ike Perlmutter and said, okay, Kevin Feige, you just now have a direct line to Alan Horn. That's how he liked to streamline things. But that was also how he did it with all of his departments. He liked to streamline and get rid of unnecessary layers of bureaucracy. Another thing that was a hallmark of Bob Iger's leadership over at Disney was the notion that here's something wild. put qualified and experienced people in the right positions of leadership.
Yep.
You know, when Bob Iger came in and he realized, listen, we need somebody to shepherd our entire movie division. Did he go out and hire, I don't know, some blogger? No. Some YouTuber? No. Some, Hostess Cookies executive? No. He went out, got Alan Horn, a proven, experienced movie executive with a creative mind, pulled him out of retirement and got him and put him in charge of that. And that was basically a hallmark of a lot of things that Bob, when he wanted to fill positions of leadership, he made sure he got experienced and the properly qualified people to put in those things. Another hallmark of Bob Iger's leadership over at Disney over the years has been clarity of vision and process. Everybody understood how things will operate, how we get from point A to point B, and everybody had a very, very clear vision of what Disney, the direction that good ship Disney was heading. So when you look at Bob Iger's leadership, let the creators lead, remove unnecessary layers of bureaucracy, put qualified and experienced people in positions of leadership, and make sure the whole company has absolute clarity of vision and process. And Rob, as a result, over the years has been unprecedented growth and expansion of the empire. Bob Iger has continued to grow and build, acquire, develop, under his, leadership. They, Lucasfilm, Pixar, MCU. I mean, the whole development and creation of Disney Plus, all because he let creators lead. He removed unnecessary bureaucracy. He had clarity of vision and purpose. And he also made sure he hired the right people with the right experience in positions of leadership. I bring all of that up because as I started to read this article in Variety, Rob, about some of the things going on over at Disney, it starts to become, it paints a very concerning picture, for me at any rate, seeing what's going on. Let's go over, and I want us to go through, we're not going to read the whole article, but let's go through this article and start looking at some of the things that Variety is pointing out here. We'll start with this. Now remember, Bob Chapek and Bob Iger have gotten along for a lot of years, but this now comes us from Variety. The once warm relationship between Bob Iger and Bob Chapek has grown strained, according to 4 insiders to Variety. This comes as Chapek has overseen a 2020 reorganization that centralized the media's company content distribution and ad sales. Everyone is becoming more and more differential to Chapek, which is the way it should be. He is the new CEO. That is what a transition period is for. More differential to Chapek, according to one Disney executive who asked not to be identified. Things are radically different than they were 6 months ago. The insider noted that the senior leaders have tried to insulate the creative teams from all the upheaval. Disney sources point out that the two have Iger and Chapek, that the two have very different personalities and approaches, which some can find disconcerting at times. To some inside the media company, Disney's move last October to restructure its operations elevated the executives who distribute Disney movies and shows over the ones who actually oversee their production. The first thing this article mentions is the first thing that Bob Chapek has done is that whole idea of let the creators lead. Bullshit, says Bob Chapek. And the very first reorg does is, nope, get the creators out of the influential spots. The creators are not the ones setting our direction anymore. Now it's the more executive types. It's our distribution people, the ones who decide where things go. Basically, the creators aren't our leaders anymore. Let's take that out of the process. They're not our leaders anymore. Anyway, we go back here. And we continue on here. Disney's move last October to restructure its operation elevated the executives who distribute Disney movies and shows over the ones who actually produce and oversee their production. The shakeup also granted a great deal of influence to a top Chapek ally, Kareem Daniel, who was elevated to chairman of Disney Media and Entertainment Distribution from his previous role of overseeing consumer products. Who's the new guy? who's going to be overseeing all the entertainment and who's going to be overseeing, now it's not the creators. Now this is the guy who's going to be calling the shot over the creatives and the direction of creative. The guy who was in charge of consumer products. When Bob Iger needed a guy for that, he went out and got Alan Horn, who was a seasoned, experienced, and successful film executive forever. And who did Bob Chapek put in place? Somebody who's loyal to him, a guy who is in charge of consumer products. Anyway, it's a very different place and a very different organization, a Disney insider said. Kareem now has huge authority and power. And of course he does. When Bob Chapek reorganized it, that the distributions and the business people now have control over the creatives, and now this guy is your main guy of that, he is now the guy. So, number one, creators, let the creators lead, said Bob Iger. Screw that, throw that out the window. That's gone. Put qualified and experienced people in the right positions of leadership. Screw that. Let's go out and get a consumer products guy and put him in charge of entertainment. Put him in charge of our studios and our creative. So, in just 1 year, we're now starting to watch Bob Chapek start to completely dismantle this structure that has worked so well for Disney, put in place by Bob Iger, and he's just wiping it all out. But it continues. Let's keep going through here. The goal, at least on paper, was to have people work more harmoniously across mediums, from television to film to Disney+. But the result has left people deeply confused about how to navigate the new order. Hollywood dealmakers noted that the new structure at Disney is Byzantine, which is basically unnecessarily complicated and more convoluted than necessary, adding an extra layer of management into the process of getting processes made. So Bob Iger is, let's make sure we have clarity of vision, right? Let's make sure we have clarity of vision and process. But now all people in the industry are looking at this new system that Bob Chapek has put into place and saying it is unnecessarily convoluted, and they've added new layers of management, whereas under Bob Iger it was always get rid of unnecessary layers of management. Make it as easy for our creators as possible to go from concept to execution and all this kind of stuff. But instead, what we see is creating confusing, convoluted, and unnecessary new processes while adding new layers of management. It goes on. In the restructuring, top division heads have lost oversight of profit and loss, basically ultimately being in charge of how their things are going to make money. In the restructuring, the top divisions heads have lost their oversight of P&L, which has been a tough pill to swallow for the likes of FX chief John Landgraf and Peter Rice, the chairman of Disney General Entertainment Content, who have grown frustrated that some of his responsibilities have been taken away. That control was an integral part of running their respective business units, given that those who deliver the best profit loss numbers to their corporate chief often had the most authority and swagger on the lot. The creators are the ones who always had that. Now, the creative side doesn't have those bragging rights, which means that they spend money on content while the distribution or business side rakes in the revenue and all the glory. One more part. And speaking of Alan Horn, when Bob Iger departs in December, it is expected that Walt Disney Studio Chief Creative Officer Alan Horn, High Lord Guru of all things Disney movies, will also leave. Horn's departure could be destabilizing, as he has been the creative guiding force at the studio for the past 9 years. Insiders at Disney say that Alan Bergman, the former co-chairman of Walt Disney Studios with Horn, who was recently elevated to chairman of Disney Studio Content, will be taking the reins alone. While Bergman has been involved in all creative meetings at the studio, many within Disney and in the creative community at large, however, view him as having more of a business acumen than artistic sensibilities. He previously held a number of operations and finance roles. This is your guy replacing Alan Horn, a guy who's been responsible for finance. And people also wonder if the job, which now includes developing projects for streaming outlets, is too big for one person to handle, given the increasing complexities of the business. Okay, so under Bob Iger, let the creators lead. Remove unnecessary layers of bureaucracy. Put qualified, experienced people in the right positions of leadership and have clarity of vision and process one by one by one by one by one. Bob Chapek has dismantled all of it. He has created a new culture there, Rob, where the creators no longer set the vision. The creators no longer blaze the trail and blaze the path. This is becoming, Rob, as I was reading this article, I remember us talking on this show, your words, when we were talking about Warner Brothers and the AT&T and like you lamenting, it is never a good thing when the creators are no longer in charge of the vision of the creation. And you get other people now, people who know nothing about the creative coming in and setting the mandates for what the creatives need to do. And Rob, to me, this whole thing spells disaster. Now, much like Walter Hamada taking over things for Disney, you're not going to see the changes or the impact right away. It's like trying to steer the Titanic, right? If you steer your car, you immediately turn. Steer the Titanic all the way around, it's going to take a while for it to happen. This is going to be a process of years. We're not going to really feel the impact of this for years. Maybe not till 2024, 2025, 2026. But Rob, if Bob Chapek continues to organize and run things like this, everything that made Disney magical, everything that kind of set them above a lot of their competitors at times, everything that made the individual department chiefs like, the chiefs at Pixar and the chiefs at Disney Animation and the chiefs at Marvel being, Kevin Feige and whatever, things that kept them happy and motivated with incentive and drive and vision, that's all being taken away. Rob, I fear that we are going to start to see over the next 4 to 5 years a real deterioration and a loss of their place in this market because Bob Chapek, while I absolutely believe a new leader needs to put their stamp on things, absolutely. But you can't just step in and take all the pillars that have made your company one of the most dominant companies on the planet for years and just wipe them all out and expected, let's just run this business. Let's just run this business like a cupcake factory, Rob. Let's just run it like we're making cupcakes. And I feel like they are losing a part of their soul. And so I don't think it's hyperbole to say, I fear Bob Chapek could be taking Disney down a road to disaster when you look at the way he thinks things should be run. So, and Rob, the other thing too is when they announced Bob Chapek taking over and we were all like, hey, I'm sure this will be great. Remember me? I'm saying, I'm sure this will be great. I'm sure they trust him. I remember we had a lot of our viewers writing to us because Bob Chapek used to be in charge of parks. Right? Parks and experiences. That's what he was in charge of.
And home entertainment as well.
And we had a lot of hardcore Disney parks fans writing into us to say, you guys don't know what you're talking about. All of us who love Disney parks hate Bob Chapek. To us, he has ruined things with Disney parks. Now, I'm not hardcore into parks, so I just kind of ignored it. I'm like, whatever. I'm sure it'll be fine. But I'm starting to look at the way they're doing things here, Rob, and it doesn't look fine. Anyway, that's a whole lot of background and context laid. Rob, you see this whole thing. What's your take on all of this?
Well, I think it's a classic mistake.
Wait, your audio's gone out. Oh no, sir, your audio's back. Keep going. Sorry about that.
Oh, I think it's a classic mistake. I remember when Christopher Nolan's Inception was coming out. The people at Warner Brothers marketing were all claiming that without Warner Brothers marketing, Inception wouldn't have made any money. That the movie was incomprehensible and that they were taking full credit for the almost $1 billion it was like close to 900 million that Inception made. And what's so funny about that thinking, what I was thinking at the time was, yeah, like the movie itself, Christopher Nolan's vision and the cast and the crew and everybody that made the movie had nothing to do with its success. It was all you guys in marketing. And this is the problem with this kind of corporate thinking. The people within corporate only exist within the confines of the Disney ecosystem. They just assume that these products that they're being given to sell are that it's not even on their corporate whatever spreadsheets they're looking at. They just assume we have a new Star Wars movie. The content of that movie, whether it's good or not, that never figures into any of their corporate calculations, because there's nothing on a corporate spreadsheet that talks about the actual quality of the product. They just assume it's going to be good. And so from a corporate standpoint, they don't take, imagine, John, all of the people that you need to make a movie great has no bearing on all of these corporate decisions.
Right.
And they think we're just going to stick another layer of management. So the people that are creating all of these products, we have one more person that we have to get through, who knows, by the way, nothing about how to make a good movie, never produced a movie, never been on a set, never written a screenplay, never directed anything, never worked in post, no understanding of how special effects are done.
But Rob, they worked in finance. Doesn't that count?
Yeah, it's unbelievable to me that now, and the problem is everybody within the Disney corporate structure, if there's more money to be made, they want to be able to take the credit. Like they say, well, distribution's going to get all the glory. Well, the people that are making these products are like, look, if you had nothing to distribute, we're the people that are actually making the product that is fueling this entire company. Why is there a Guardians of the Galaxy ride at Disneyland? Well, because Kevin Feige hired James Gunn, and James Gunn cast the actors that made the film beloved. And then Disney could then exploit Guardians of the Galaxy however they wanted to. But with as far as Disney is concerned, the Guardians of the Galaxy is just a product to sell.
Right.
The fact that it is the kind of product that it is, that took hundreds, if not thousands of people to make, and it took someone like James Gunn with decades in the industry to hone his craft, none of that figures on their spreadsheets. What I'm reading now is what you just read, and this article, I read it yesterday after you made me aware of it. It is a classic corporate mistake waiting to happen. Because while on the in the corporate playbook, it might seem smart, but when you're dealing with creatives that are making the product, that the making of the product in itself is a whole other industry, a whole other business that they don't even take into consideration, is a huge mistake. And this kind of thinking, we saw what it did at Warner Brothers. We've seen what it's happened over and over and over and over ever since the Kinney Shoe Company took over Warner Brothers in the 70s. I mean, yeah, we're a shoe company, but we want to take over a studio. Sure, what could happen? We know how to do that. We make shoes. Aren't movies just other widgets to sell? Nope. And the thing is, John, what's really interesting about this, never do you ever hear anybody talk about, well, we hope our movies are good. Like, none of this talks about how do we make the best movies we can, whether it's Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilm. None of that is in this article. None of these people even know how. And yet they're talking about, we're going to do this restructuring and that restructuring. None of it matters. If your product that you're selling, which are your movies and shows, if they're not good, you people fail. And yet all of this business never mentions it, never talks about, we need to facilitate your first order of business should be make the best content across whatever medium you're doing, make the best content possible. Your whole business lives and dies on that. But all these corporate restructuring BS shenanigans have nothing to do with making a better product. In fact, they hurt that process. And yet it's not part of their consideration.
And you know, it's funny you mentioned that, because again, it's another very visible juxtaposition, because when we look back at the recent big Disney shareholders event that they had, where they announced all the upcoming Marvel shows and all the upcoming Star Wars shows, Bob Iger took the stage. And what did Bob Iger focus on? He said, my focus is on quality, not quantity. It's not just about churning out as much product as possible. It's about making quality content. And what we're seeing now is that's not really part of the consideration anymore. It's just getting the getting the content out there, not even letting these creators decide where their creation is going. Rob, we've been hearing a lot of rumbling coming out of Pixar, and now it makes sense. We've been hearing a lot of rumbling coming out of Pixar that a lot of employees at Pixar are very upset and very disgruntled over the fact that Bob Chapek's, guys have decided to take their films, whether it's Soul or Luca, and dump them on Disney Plus. And we've been hearing lots of reports that the people at Pixar itself were very unhappy about that. These were decisions that the heads of Pixar got to make before. It's not going to be up to Kevin Feige anymore. When he decides, if we're going to get a movie made, it's not going to be up to him where it goes. That used to be his decision. Because he used to follow the part of the creative vision and what medium is it best for. Not their decision anymore. And it's very frustrating as a fan of Disney to see. By the way, failed journalist and Sergio sent in super chat badges and live chat. Thanks for that, guys. I appreciate that. But it's frustrating to see, and I can only imagine how frustrating it must be to be one of these creatives in Disney, whether you're in the Pixar division, Star Wars division, Marvel division, animation division, Disney Pictures division, whichever division you're in. This has got to be incredibly frustrating to all of a sudden see all these new managers appointed who are going to have power over you that have never, as you said, Rob, never spent a day on set, never wrote a script, never been part of making a movie or anything like that before. Yet these are the people that they're going to have to answer to. And Rob, I can only wonder, how long is Kevin Feige going to pull up with that BS?
Not long.
Not long.
I mean, the man is the cornerstone between Star Wars and Marvel. They're literally building Disney Plus, which is, of course, the thing that everyone's pointing to, that what their new subscriber counts, 103 million subscribers or something now.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me that within the corporate ranks, of course, it's all they're doing. When really, as we've talked about on this show, it's the only thing that provides growth for you is the content, is the new product that you guys put out. That's it. And the product that you put out has nothing to do with your corporate structuring. Nothing. And it's just, and by the way, that's the push-pull of the entire entertainment business. Studios that have become owned by larger and larger corporations never take into account the fact that what you're doing when you're dealing with a studio is it's only as good as the creators that are making the content under those studio heads. That's it. And the fact is, why should Kevin Feige, after 13 years of success, even have to deal with this? He should be at the top going, you'll take what I give you and you'll do what I say. Done. No more management, none of this BS. We'll tell you when we're going to give you our show to launch. You do what you do. But I mean, Kevin Feige is the man, and he even said in this article, I think they mentioned he doesn't want to run Lucasfilm. No, he's got plans for Marvel because he's built the most successful entertainment franchise in history. And getting rid of Ike Perlmutter was an impediment to that. Bob Iger made sure that no more impediments. Kevin Feige does what he does. And yet all of these people can play on, and everyone's trying to backbite in the little corporate structure of Disney, and they'll do what they do. But really, they don't need any of those people. They really don't. And they need their creators. They need Pixar, they need Marvel, they need Lucasfilm, they need the people that are making things for National Geographic or whatever. All of this other stuff, you read these articles, none of these people matter. They're all replaceable. They can all go away tomorrow, and they'll hire yet some other corporate person, some other Ivy League educated person who, I've worked in product placement for whatever big company, whatever, and now I'm going to head up this. And of course, everybody loves the fact that they're going to interact with people in the movie business. It's all ridiculous, and it is the entirety. Everything wrong with corporations was in this article. So dumb.
And here's the funny thing. Disney has been doing it differently, and they've been winning. I would understand if they've been doing it differently for all these years under Bob Iger and it wasn't working, then yeah, do it like the more traditional corporations do it. But they've been doing it differently than the other corporations. They've been doing it differently than Warner Brothers or Paramount or Sony Pictures. And they've been kicking their asses. But so what do? Well, let's start doing it like they do. I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And remember, guys, we're not about to see Disney burn to the ground tomorrow. I mean, Bob Iger's influence. It's still going to be Bob Iger's Disney for the next 3 or 4 years, really, because it takes a long time for a lot of these changes to start taking effect. Don't forget, Disney Plus is Bob Iger's idea. This was Bob Iger's baby. This is his thing. But I just worry, as a big fan of Disney, I am a fan of Disney, but I just worry that 3, 4, 5 years from now, the things that once made Disney so successful and so magical are going to be gone. And I'm really worried about that. And I'm very concerned about the Bob Chapek thing. And listen, I've never met Bob Chapek. I talked to somebody I knew at Disney who said everybody likes Bob, but not everybody's totally confident about the new Bob, but everybody likes him. So I don't know, maybe Bob Iger doesn't like him anymore, according to this article. Anyway, guys, this is a huge issue to chew through. But anyway, guys, question is for you. You hear a lot of stuff being talked about in Variety's article and hearing what's going on there. You're seeing the different structure changes that are being made. What do you guys think about all this? Maybe you feel it's much ado about nothing. Maybe you're worried like me that this could lead to a lot of problems 4 or 5 years down the road. It won't happen overnight, but I don't know. How do you guys feel about this? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys,